Hello, Army! Welcome back to K-Pop Fact Today. There are moments when the image of BTS appears to change without warning. Beneath the carefully styled outfits, choreography, and controlled stage presence exists another story, one written through years of training, performance pressure, changing body silhouettes, and relentless physical preparation. From lean dancers to visibly stronger physiques, every member has undergone a different physical evolution. But when the seven are placed side by side, one question repeatedly returns among fans: who actually has the most muscular and powerful physique in BTS? This ranking examines public appearances, documented fitness discussions, visible changes across different eras, and the physical demands of their careers, not private assumptions or unverified measurements. The result may not be the ranking many expected. Position number 7, Suga, the quiet physique that rarely seeks attention. Late at night, when the noise surrounding BTS becomes distant and the stage lights disappear, Suga has often presented an image that seems almost incompatible with the idea of physical intensity. His public persona has traditionally been associated with music production, songwriting, a restrained personality, and an almost deliberate refusal to place his physical appearance at the center of attention. Yet that apparent contradiction is precisely what makes his position difficult to evaluate. Suga is not generally perceived as the most muscular member of BTS, but that does not mean his physique lacks strength. His body has repeatedly had to withstand the demands of world tours, long rehearsals, choreography, travel, and years of performing under extreme schedules. The important distinction is between muscularity and physical capability. A visibly large frame does not automatically mean superior functional strength, just as a lean silhouette does not indicate weakness. Suga's public image has generally remained closer to a lean, compact build than the broader physiques associated with members such as RM, Jin, or Jungkook. This makes him difficult to place using visual comparison alone. There have been periods when fans noticed changes in his shoulders, arms, and overall definition, but those observations should be treated as visual impressions rather than objective measurements. Unlike RM, who has openly discussed his transformation through exercise, or Jungkook, whose interest in physical training has repeatedly appeared in public content, Suga has not built the same public narrative around muscular development. His strength therefore exists largely in the background. Even when his appearance changes, it is usually not accompanied by a dramatic announcement or an obvious attempt to emphasize the transformation. That silence creates an unusual phenomenon. Fans often notice the change only after comparing photographs from different periods. A performer can appear almost unchanged from one angle and noticeably stronger from another, depending on posture, clothing, lighting, camera distance, and physical condition on the day. This is particularly important when discussing idols, because stage styling can radically alter the apparent proportions of a body. Oversized clothing can conceal the shoulders and arms, while fitted stage costumes can create the opposite impression. Suga has frequently appeared in silhouettes that do not emphasize muscular definition, making direct comparison even more complicated. There is also another factor. BTS members are dancers and performers first, meaning their physical preparation is not necessarily designed around maximizing muscle size. Their bodies have to remain capable of repeated movement, stamina, coordination, and recovery. In that context, Suga's position near the bottom of a ranking based specifically on visible muscularity should not be interpreted as a judgment of fitness or strength. It simply reflects how little evidence exists to place him among the group's most visibly muscular members. Even after years of scrutiny, the mystery surrounding his physique remains unusually quiet. Perhaps that is exactly why his physique can be overlooked so easily. If muscularity is measured by visual mass, Suga falls lower in this ranking, but if the question were endurance, resilience, or the ability to survive the physical demands of BTS's career, the entire order could change.
And that raises the first unanswered question: how much of a person's real strength can ever be seen from the outside?
Position number 6, Jimin, the physique shaped by precision, not mass. Under the cold white lights of a rehearsal studio, Jimin's physical transformation becomes easier to understand. His body has always been closely connected to movement. Every turn, extension, contraction, and controlled pause in his choreography requires a different kind of physical discipline from simply building visible muscle. This distinction explains why Jimin can appear extraordinarily athletic without necessarily possessing the largest frame in BTS. His physique has evolved according to the demands of dance, and his own words provide an unusually clear record of that process. In a Weverse magazine interview, Jimin discussed changing his body specifically because he wanted a physique capable of expressing particular emotions through performance. He described pursuing a strict diet during the Dynamite period and losing weight to reach the visual silhouette he wanted. That admission is significant because it demonstrates that his physical appearance was not simply the result of genetics or styling. It was something he consciously adjusted for artistic purposes. Yet it also explains why placing him high on a ranking based solely on muscular size would be misleading. Jimin's physique has frequently prioritized proportion, flexibility, control, and visual lines rather than maximum bulk. His shoulders, arms, abdomen, and legs can appear highly defined under stage lighting, but definition is not identical to muscle mass. A dancer can have strong and developed muscles while maintaining a relatively narrow silhouette. In Jimin's case, the visual effect is often amplified by choreography. His movements reveal muscular control that may disappear when he stands still. This creates one of the most interesting visual contradictions in BTS. A member who may look relatively slim in casual clothing can appear extraordinarily powerful in motion. The historical record also shows that Jimin has paid close attention to how his body affects his dancing. He explained that he researched different body types and considered what kind of physique would best communicate emotion on stage. That approach is fundamentally different from the bodybuilding style pursuit of size. It suggests that his physical transformation was functional and artistic at the same time. Fans therefore sometimes interpret his sharper silhouette as evidence of increased muscularity, when part of the visual change may come from reduced body fat, posture, lighting, costume design, or changes in weight. This is why photographs alone cannot provide a reliable measurement of who is actually the most muscular. Still, compared with the other members, Jimin possesses one of the most visibly conditioned physiques when he performs. His body is built around precision. The muscles do not necessarily dominate the frame. They reveal themselves through movement. During powerful choreography, his shoulders and arms can suddenly look far more substantial than expected, while his core stability allows him to execute movements that require considerable control. The public record does not support the idea that Jimin is the largest member of BTS, but it strongly supports the conclusion that his physique has been deliberately shaped around performance. In other words, his strength is hidden inside technique. That may explain why fans can be surprised by his physical appearance even after years of watching him. The question is no longer whether Jimin has muscles. Clearly, he does. The more difficult question is whether a body designed for precision can ever compete visually with a body designed by years of heavier strength training.
Position number 5. Taehyung, the transformation that became impossible to ignore. The atmosphere changes when the subject turns toward V. For years, Kim Taehyung's visual identity was dominated by fashion, facial features, distinctive proportions, and a naturally broad presence that could make ordinary clothing look unusually structured. But behind that image, another transformation gradually emerged. At different points in BTS's career, fans began noticing changes in his shoulders, arms, chest, and overall physical definition. What made those changes particularly striking was the contrast with his previous appearance. V had never been known primarily as the group's most muscular member, so every visible increase in strength seemed more dramatic than it might have appeared on someone who had always maintained a heavily trained physique. public fitness-related moments provide pieces of this timeline. In 2023, footage circulated from a Weverse workout session in which V showed exercises involving bodyweight movements and lower body training. More importantly, his physical condition continued to become a subject of discussion during and after his military service period. In later fan discussions surrounding his training and running, V himself was reported as talking about changes in his body composition. Such comments offer clues, but they should not be converted into definitive measurements without professional testing. What can be observed more safely is the evolution of his silhouette. V's natural frame gives him an advantage in visual presence. His shoulders can appear wide even before substantial muscular development is considered, and when additional muscle definition is layered onto that structure, the result can look considerably larger. This is one reason photographs of V can create a stronger impression than his actual muscle mass might suggest. Camera angles, fitted clothing, posture, and lighting can exaggerate the upper body, especially around the shoulders and chest. Yet dismissing the transformation as merely an optical illusion would also be inaccurate. There have been clearly visible periods when his physique appeared more conditioned and athletic than in earlier eras. The mystery is what caused the differences at each stage. BTS members experience constant changes in schedule, diet, rehearsal intensity, travel, rest, and personal routines. A physique photographed after months of disciplined training cannot be compared fairly with a photograph taken after an exhausting promotional period. V's case illustrates this perfectly. His body has never existed in a single permanent form. Instead, it has shifted according to the demands of the period. The result is a physique that can alternate between elegant and powerful without losing the distinctive proportions associated with him. Among BTS members, V therefore occupies an unusual middle ground. He may not possess the most obvious overall muscular mass, but his frame can make relatively modest changes appear dramatic. Fans are particularly sensitive to these changes because his visual identity is so recognizable. A wider shoulder line, stronger arms, or a more defined torso can immediately alter the balance of his appearance. This is also why ranking him becomes controversial. One observer may focus on shoulder width and place him near the top, while another may judge actual muscle density and move him lower. There is no publicly available standardized body composition test across all 7 members that can settle the debate. What remains is the visual record, public statements, and documented moments of training. And the visual record suggests something unmistakable. V's physique has changed enough over the years to challenge the assumption that his greatest physical asset is simply his appearance. Perhaps the most surprising part is that the transformation never needed to be announced. It appeared gradually, almost silently, until fans suddenly realized that the silhouette they remembered was no longer exactly the same.
Position number 4, Jhope, the dancer whose strength is hidden in movement. In a rehearsal room before the music begins, Jhope's physique tells a different story. There is no dramatic pause, no deliberate display of muscle, only a body preparing to move. His physical strength has always been closely connected to dance, and that makes his appearance difficult to judge using conventional ideas of muscularity. Jhope is not generally built like a heavyweight strength athlete. His physique is comparatively lean, compact, and athletic, with muscle definition that becomes more apparent when he moves. But behind that lean appearance is one of the most technically demanding physical profiles in BTS. His career has required extraordinary control over balance, rhythm, coordination, explosive movement, and endurance. In a 2020 Weverse magazine interview, Jhope's dance warm-up was described as lasting more than an hour, beginning with gradual stretching and movement before progressing into larger motions and eventually cool-down exercises. That routine offers a glimpse into the type of physical preparation that has existed behind his performances for years. The significance is not the number of minutes itself, it is the consistency of a physical discipline that has accompanied his career. Jhope's body is essentially a performance instrument. His muscularity is therefore expressed through movement rather than simply through size. His shoulders and arms can appear sharply defined, while his legs and core carry the explosive transitions that define much of his dancing.
The impression becomes particularly powerful during performances in which choreography requires rapid changes of direction. A large amount of visible muscle could actually become counterproductive for the type of movement Jhope performs. Dance requires mobility and efficiency. The body has to generate force while remaining light enough to change position almost instantly. That creates a different definition of strength. From a purely visual perspective, Jhope may not immediately overwhelm the other members in the way Jungkook or RM can, but if the ranking considers athletic conditioning, his position becomes much harder to challenge. There is also a psychological component to how fans perceive his body. Because Jhope's public image is so strongly associated with dance, viewers may automatically interpret his physique as lean rather than muscular. Yet those categories are not opposites. A lean athlete can possess considerable muscular development without appearing bulky. His long-term dance career provides a continuous environment in which strength, endurance, and coordination must coexist. That makes Jhope one of the most physically conditioned members, even if he does not always look like the most muscular. The distinction becomes obvious when comparing still photographs with performance footage. In a still image, his frame may appear relatively narrow. In motion, the structure changes completely. The shoulders stabilize, the arms become sharply defined, and the legs generate explosive movement while the torso remains controlled. It is the kind of strength that disappears when the music stops. Public information also shows that Jhope's physical preparation has not been limited to stage performances. His military service period and later return brought renewed attention to his physical condition. Yet even then, the evidence remains primarily visual rather than scientifically measured. There is no reliable public ranking of muscle mass among BTS members. What exists is a collection of photographs, videos, interviews, and observations that reveal different aspects of their physiques. Jhope's evidence point towards athletic strength rather than maximum size. That distinction keeps him below the heavier-looking members in this particular ranking, but it also makes his position more fascinating, because perhaps the strongest body is not always the one that appears largest under a spotlight. Sometimes it is the one that can keep moving when the spotlight has already gone dark.
Position number 3, Jin, the unexpected muscle man behind the visual image. For years, Jin's public identity created a strange contradiction. He was celebrated for his visual appearance, his broad shoulders, and the image that eventually earned him the famous worldwide handsome reputation, yet his physique was not always discussed in the same breath as the group's most dedicated fitness-focused members. Then, almost quietly, the evidence began accumulating. Jin's body became noticeably more muscular in certain periods, and the contrast was strong precisely because fans had not always expected it. In 2021, Jin publicly discussed his exercise habits on Weverse, describing a period in which he had committed himself to working out and had even undergone a body check. Fan translations from the period captured his excitement about the possibility of developing a more muscular body. Although individual figures mentioned in fan-compiled translations should be treated cautiously, the larger point is supported by the public conversation. Jin was actively paying attention to his physical development. His transformation became particularly noticeable because his natural frame already possessed strong structural features. His shoulders are broad, his upper body can appear substantial even beneath ordinary clothing, and when additional muscle definition is present, the overall silhouette becomes much more powerful. Unlike Jhope, whose athleticism is often revealed through movement, Jin's physique can become immediately apparent in a still image. Unlike RM, whose muscular transformation became an explicit part of his public fitness narrative, Jin's development sometimes seemed to arrive in waves. This created moments when fans suddenly noticed that the member they remembered from earlier eras looked significantly stronger. There is another reason Jin deserves a high position. His physical development cannot be separated entirely from his broader lifestyle.
BTS's schedule has repeatedly required long periods of rehearsal, touring, travel, and performance, and Jin has also shown interest in activities that demand physical coordination. The combination of a naturally broad frame and periods of focused exercise can produce an appearance that is more muscular than his public persona initially suggests. In 2026, recent Bangtan TV content also continued to draw fan attention to Jin engaging in exercise-related activity, reinforcing the idea that fitness has remained part of his life rather than being confined to a single era. However, the ranking still needs caution. Muscular appearance can fluctuate significantly depending on body fat, hydration, lighting, clothing, posture, and recent training. A photograph showing a particularly defined Jin does not prove that he permanently maintains that exact physique, nor does a softer appearance prove the opposite. The most credible conclusion comes from looking at repeated patterns across time. Jin has demonstrated a clear capacity to develop a visibly muscular upper body, and his proportions make that development especially noticeable. This is why his ranking may surprise casual viewers. The member who can appear relaxed, elegant, or even deceptively slender in one setting can suddenly look like a completely different person under stage lighting or in fitted clothing. His physique has therefore become one of BTS's quietest transformations. There was no single moment when the world officially declared Jin the group's muscle man. Instead, the perception accumulated slowly. One photograph, one workout reference, one performance, one changed silhouette at a time. By the time the transformation became obvious, the question was no longer whether Jin had developed significant muscle. The question had become how far that transformation could go. And perhaps that is the most unsettling part of the story. If Jin's physical evolution was capable of surprising fans this much without being the central focus of his public identity, what else has been changing beneath the surface?
Position number 2. RM, the transformation that turned into physical evidence. The lights inside a gym are very different from the lights of a concert stage. There's no choreography to distract the eye, no elaborate costume, and no camera choreography designed to produce a particular visual effect. Under those conditions, RM's physical transformation became unusually difficult to hide. His journey is one of the best documented examples within BTS of a member intentionally changing his physique through consistent training. In early 2021, RM publicly discussed his exercise routine and explained that he had been working out 4 to 5 times a week for approximately 6 months. His stated motivation was not simply appearance. He wanted to become physically stronger so that he could dance more powerfully on stage. That distinction is important because it reveals the practical purpose behind the transformation. RM was not simply chasing a visual ideal, he was trying to increase his physical capacity as a performer. Over time, fans began noticing that his arms looked thicker and that his entire frame had changed. RM himself remained relatively modest about the transformation, even suggesting that photographs and clothing could exaggerate how muscular he appeared. Yet the difference between earlier and later eras was difficult to dismiss. In a later Weverse magazine interview, he explained that consistent exercise had become part of his routine and that he could feel his frame changing gradually. This gradual process is exactly what makes his physique so convincing. It was not a sudden visual effect, it was the accumulation of repeated training over time. Publicly documented material also showed RM performing upper body and full body exercises, reinforcing the picture of a structured strength routine rather than occasional exercise. One particularly striking detail from his earlier fitness discussion was the improvement in his pull-up ability, which he said had progressed dramatically over the course of his training. While such self-reported figures are not equivalent to laboratory testing, they provide a concrete indication that his physical capacity was changing, not merely his appearance. The visual result was significant. RM's naturally tall frame meant that even moderate increases in muscle could dramatically change his silhouette.
Broader shoulders, thicker arms, and a more developed upper body made him appear considerably more imposing than during BTS's early years. The effect was amplified by his height. When muscle is distributed across a larger frame, it can create an impression of overwhelming scale even without the compact density seen in someone like Jungkook. This is why RM occupies second place rather than third. He possesses a rare combination of height, frame, and documented commitment to strength training. But there is still a problem with declaring him number one. Visual size does not equal total muscularity, and RM himself has repeatedly resisted the idea that he is extraordinarily bulky. His physique remains athletic rather than bodybuilder-like. He has also spoken about diet, Pilates, and other forms of conditioning, suggesting that his training philosophy is broader than simply maximizing muscle mass. The evidence therefore points toward a strong, developed, functional physique built around performance. What makes RM's case particularly compelling is the timeline. Fans can trace the transformation from a leaner, early career appearance to a noticeably more muscular adult frame. The change is not dependent on one photograph. It is visible across multiple periods and supported by his own public comments. Still, there is one member whose physical development has repeatedly challenged even RM's imposing frame, and when the two are compared, the difference is not necessarily height, but density, proportion, and the unmistakable appearance of someone who has treated physical training as a serious personal discipline. The second position therefore leaves one final question hanging in the air. If RM's transformation was already this dramatic, what could possibly place another member above him?
Position number 1. Jungkook, the physique that changed the entire conversation. The room is quiet before the performance begins. The stage is still dark, the audience is waiting, and somewhere behind the curtains, Jungkook is preparing for another appearance. There is nothing mysterious about the fact that he trains, because Jungkook has repeatedly shown an unusually strong interest in physical conditioning throughout his career. What makes his case different is the consistency with which his physique has remained visibly athletic, muscular, and powerful across multiple eras. From the beginning of BTS's career, Jungkook possessed a naturally athletic build, but the transformation became increasingly obvious as he matured. His shoulders broadened, his arms became more developed, his chest and back gained greater definition, and his overall proportions began to resemble those of someone who trains for strength rather than simply maintaining a dancer's physique. Public content has repeatedly reinforced this impression. Jungkook has participated in workout sessions, discussed exercise, and has been seen engaging in physical activities ranging from strength work to boxing. More recent fitness coverage has also highlighted his preference for body weight-based conditioning and exercises that combine strength with endurance. The important factor is not one particular routine, it is the pattern. His body has remained highly conditioned while his career has continued to demand intense choreography, rehearsals, touring, and performance stamina. That combination is difficult to maintain. A person can become muscular through resistance training, but maintaining enough conditioning to perform complex choreography requires a different physical balance. Jungkook appears to occupy that intersection. His physique is not merely large, it is dense, athletic, and functional looking. This is where the comparison with RM becomes particularly interesting. RM possesses height and an increasingly broad muscular frame, but Jungkook's shorter and more compact proportions make his muscle development appear more concentrated. The same amount of muscle can visually look larger when distributed across a compact frame. His shoulders, arms, chest, and torso therefore create an immediate impression of density. This does not mean that he objectively has the greatest muscle mass. There is no publicly available standardized body composition comparison across all 7 members. But if the question is which member's physique most consistently gives the impression of being muscular and powerful, Jungkook has one of the strongest cases. His history of training also supports the visual evidence. Rather than appearing muscular only during a particular comeback or photographic concept, his physique has repeatedly surfaced in casual footage, rehearsal environments, performances, and fitness-related content.
That consistency matters. Lighting can create temporary definition, but it cannot explain years of visible structural change. Neither can clothing alone. The silhouette has changed over time. Jungkook's physical development also became part of his public identity in a way that few other members experienced. Fans began recognizing his arms, shoulders, and athletic build as a defining characteristic. His boxing interest added another layer to that image, because boxing requires coordination, conditioning, speed, and repeated movement, rather than simply the pursuit of muscle size. Again, the distinction between muscularity and athleticism becomes critical. Jungkook's strength appears to be expressed through both. Yet the final ranking remains subjective, because there is no official BTS document declaring one member the most muscular. Any claim that Jungkook possesses a specific superiority in muscle mass would go beyond the available evidence. What can be said is more precise. Among the 7, Jungkook has repeatedly displayed one of the most visibly developed and athletic physiques, and his long-term training history provides context for why that appearance exists. His transformation is not a single dramatic reveal, it is the accumulation of years. That may be why fans continue to react when new footage appears. The surprise is not that Jungkook has muscles. The surprise is how consistently the physique remains visible despite changing eras, costumes, schedules, and artistic concepts. In the end, the ranking points towards a simple but unresolved conclusion. RM may possess the larger visual frame, Jin may possess an unexpectedly powerful build, Jhope may possess exceptional athletic conditioning, V may have undergone one of the most noticeable transformations, Jimin may demonstrate extraordinary muscular control through dance, Suga may remain the least visually emphasized while still possessing functional strength. But Jungkook brings together compact proportions, visible muscle development, athletic conditioning, and a long public history of physical training in a way that makes his physique the most convincing choice for number 1. And perhaps the final mystery is not who has the biggest body at all. Perhaps it is how much work, discipline, and unseen transformation lies behind the body the audience sees for only a few minutes beneath the stage lights.